examples of this just to build the point home. What us to do is to, if you can, note down a few things and then try as much as you can to keep these things in memory and try to picture the things such you're building on block by block in your mind. So we're going to look at the price projection. Like we've seen earlier, we have motive waves. Like what we call motive waves are going to be those 5 waves projection direction. Then we have the corrective wave, and also we have the corrective wave, and also we have to know that price moves in an impulse. We're just talking about whether move in the market, so the impulse waves are always moving up. And also, now let me give you just an example to the theory. So you have now the that's in what I use this image as an example. I hope you have is what we call, like, maybe say the first degree, or like if you have one with theory, it says that every time you're having an impulse wave, which is a wave in the direction of the trend, when you look at it in a smaller degree, that impulsive wave is going to be divided into 5, that impulsive wave is going to be divided into 5, always divides into daily candle, a daily impulse. If I went down to 1 on the daily, I'm able to see 1 on the daily. I'm able to see what you have to pick is that, yes, we have an impulse and a correction, but every impulsive line is that when you get this theory, you're going to notice that you need to, you need to do like a proper wave count. So the purpose of having this at the back of your mind is knowing that when you get to 1, when you try to go to a lower time frame, you should be seeing this is a divisions. So always is a 5-3 pattern. So that means, like, even if you're coming from like 1 hour going down to 30 minutes, going down to 15 minutes, you're going to hour going down to 30 minutes, going down to 15 minutes, you're going to want us to look at this wave A is a corrective wave of waves. And then impulsive wave, it should have 3 fractal trend. It's a degree notation. When let's say you've had like you've had like a yearly chart, of like the different years from, like, let's say, I don't know, like 1910, and to the labeling down to months, it's going to be the legends of the down to months, it's going to be the legends of the sub. And this is just for labeling purposes, already established, so that when you're counting, you don't get, when you're on your chart, you have something that is keeping you in check, and you're not deluded. This is not. And looking at that, number 1, the wave 2 retraces the beginning of overlap test. Say that wave 3 should be the long, not be the these rules are and put at the 5. Rule number 1. The rule number 1 says that wave will see and reassess, because then that's not the Elliot waves. So you shouldn't have something like this where that wave 3, it's usually the longest, but sometimes in the charts it's not. So the shortest, you have to reconcile. Try see here. So I hope you can pass a rough shortly, and just ideally this is what does and how the chart really usually look like. So we're seeing our really usually look like. So we're seeing our wave one, which is an impulsive wave. When you look at this, in, uh, did an illustration of what a chart would look like. And I think let's cover some more things and then we'll look at the charts once. Okay, so the waves that or that are usually 3 and wave 5. Then if you're in a correction, the impulse wave is going to be the wave A and the active wave polar degrees and wave C. When more that that it's going in the waves, you notice that your wave in as much of the impulse waves, but when you try to remove one characteristic of a diagonal wave, the notice that going to see, you notice that you revive and see which it ends up showing us one is an impulse. So sometimes you cannot wave diagonal, but seeing the overlap and analyze using these theories fully ground the theory aspects, ground the rules in your mind, and it becomes more accurate. So just what we're doing is just to look at these waves further, meaning that overlap in the price territory, the subwaves of those individual waves, you'll notice that your wave A is going to have 5. Your wave A is going to have 5. These numbers, they're just going to have 5, whereas they're just going to have 5. Whereas when you look at a 333 structure you're having, in every wave 3 structure you're having, in every wave you have subdivision. Looking at so far you have subdivision. Looking at so further dissect territory, and further dissect territory, and see, okay, what type of structure am I having here? Is it that every wave is having a corrective form, like so this is a very choppy or see is overlapping the price territory. The share overlapping the price territory of wave one, being impulse correction, anything appreciate that can either be an impulse as of whether wave 4 is overlapping, and then other subwaves it's a motive moves in a correct. So when it comes to the corrective waves, you want to find out, okay, so the market can correct in a zigzag format. So the market can correct in a zigzag format. So the zigzag is just how you have this shape here. Remember, it's patterns. So we're mostly memorizing shapes and further going to the different characteristics of these shapes. So this is a zigzag pattern. And I think we're all familiar with triangles, that whenever a question is what, like separate C correction, but what their corrective three-wave structure, and when you look at it, its impulse, it follows a 5-3-5 pattern. One thing that navigates using the theory, but it doesn't always have to. So this is just a zigzag pattern. Can also be sometimes in the market, you'll notice that the zigzag pattern can be simple or complex. Characteristic of you're having two of what a double zigzag, you'll see to be a wave that is, when we get to look more at the charts. But if you're taking notes, just kindly take notes and then we'll look at the practical bit. But what really determines it is that when you're having your ABC correction, the relations can either rise or it can be expanded where wave B goes beyond the origin of wave A to reach the source of this at least terminology. So flat corrections are usually the correction is usually not steep and the word really triangle is usually or expanding retracements or this complex were flat with linking waves. So the types the double three it's just zag like this illustration of a double three. Then you're saying okay the chart is wave X correction flat. So W and Y are just the names that the people correct a zigzag. Sometimes you look at the chart and yeah. Wave trunk normally wave 5 think some of the common pass wave 5 subwaves in the impulse correction impulse, but then waves in the impulse correction impulse. But then when you do your wave 5, you notice that yes, you're having your 5 waves, but wave the end of is usually what creates those. Then wave extension, which we'll see creates those. Then wave extension, which we'll see practically, I think, on that. Then wave extension, which we'll see practically, I think, on the charts is when price that the subwaves of a certain wave is in the extensions. But I think we'll look at in the extensions. But I think we'll look at this in detail. Is just different terms and guidelines, and in the Elliot of lines, and in the Elliot of theory, it states that usually alternate Bible with guidelines. So sometimes you can see it in the chat, sometimes it's not. Well, for a rule is just a guideline and something you can appreciate in the chat. Fibonacci ratios. That when it comes to wave 2, we expect it to retrace like 50% or 61.8% of wave A. It never 161.8% of relationships. So that means when you want to project and are able for purposes of the chart, you do the count, maybe going to invest in a web 3 to take. Well, this theory is how you analyze learning the data. It helps you and you have a proper edge. But like you've seen, the market is really something that has been proved. He uses the Elliot wave and he quite well, so it's easy. But you can't understand them, and there's no solid scientific backing in terms of the fact that it's not like scientific numbers where I have one becomes trickier. And today we just states and suggests that you identify like 5 people reversal. In this motive is if I draw wave where it's obeying the rules and wave 4 is not overlapping the price territory. But as a general rule, we also now have to look at when he's saying, is it a flat, is it a zigzag, is it a triangle, or is it a combination of all of them? And then question the importance of this class. We're going to try to look at it from like a practical sense. So you can just go read the notes, do the subwebs, and I think Paxton, let me hand over to you and I don't know if Mr.
Before we close the class, I see I personally enjoyed it, and this it's just as it's nice anyway. This class, I believe, will get up.
Yeah, this class I've been enjoying. One thing is that uh, she was and everything was learning the lesson and repeat. Just repeat whatever math, trading, practice, and more mastery. It's a skillful one. It is where actually art meets what we do call trading. Now, I'm just enjoying the lesson. Bye.
We can have those questions in the test. So thinking we'll be going on.